Graciousness. It's gonna be a conversation on graciousness. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Glorious, divine, magical soul beings. This is Katerina Satori, and I wanted to share something with you today that I actually had requests from a private conversation. My friend said, you gotta do a video on this. So I'm like, okay, all right, let's do a video on this. How are you? Hello, hello, hello. Let's do this. Let's do a video on this. The art of difficult conversations with ease. How to have difficult conversation with ease, and we're gonna lean into the quality of consciousness that's called graciousness. Yes, graciousness. So first of all, to establish the frame for this conversation, I have not walked out of my mama womb masterful at communication. In fact, most of my life, communication was a challenge for me. Not because I couldn't find a key to any person. That's actually one of my superpowers. To find the key to any person is a skill that helped me survive a very traumatic childhood. I'm saying how to have brave, authentic conversation in a way that establishes a deeper harmony. You see, I was a master avoidant most of my life. The moment the conversation heats up emotionally, I'm out of the door because I can't handle the intensity, or I can't find the way to break through the armor, right? So then I don't want to deal with it. The new perspective that I keep discovering, that is a perspective that comes when we begin to live from the heart, we begin to communicate from the heart, and we begin to retrain our ego to be in service of the heart, right? So there is always this going to be, to me, the journey of awakening is the journey of re-education. To teach our personality or the ego to be in service of the heart, to be in service of the soul. Personality or ego you will recognize when personality or ego is talking when you hear something like this. They, she, he, right? It's not me, it's them. So the soul, when we approach the journey of the soul doesn't need to be right. Your heart cares very little about being right. Your heart longs for truth. Your heart longs for intimacy. Your heart wants to be seen, and it's naked, undefended, open, radically available beauty. And for that openness, you gotta take a risk, right? You gotta take a risk. Your ego will say, you're gonna look like a fool. Open yourself up like this, expose your soul. They take advantage of you. They're gonna walk over you, right? They'll turn it against you. So you see, you learn to discern at any moment who is speaking. Because there's a whole character set within our psyche, right? There's not just one you or one me. There's a whole movie set of personalities, right? We have a saboteur, we have a warrior, we have a protector, we have a lover, we have a mystic, we have a student, we have an addict, right? We have all of those aspects of our personalities all trying to assert their dominance or control over your mind. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a context before I open up a conversation of the art of graciousness. It's a skill that we learn. Very, very few people are just naturally good at having courageous conversations in a spirit of graciousness. All right, darlings, I hope my and if you just joined, welcome. I'm gonna move to a little bit better Wi-Fi spot. So 1 second. We're gonna go to a different spot. But I brought 64 qualities of consciousness. What's going on? Hello. Talking about the art of graciousness. The art of graciousness. And for like 2 minutes, I was setting the context, letting everyone know that I did not rolled out of my mother womb being a gracious communicator, not even close. And it's still such an area of growth. Yeah, because, whenever we communicate vulnerably from the heart, it will always have an element of risk. It will always feel like, what if I will not be received? But I just recently had a conversation with my mother that I wrote a whole post about it. And I just kind of wanted to break down the process that was so useful. Because when you enter the field with somebody who is emotionally activated, usually, for example, if you already perceive an emotionally activated conversation, right? So the very first thing that I focus on doing is reassuring a person that my intention is benevolent. So it's energetics, right? And I know I have a lot of quite mature beings who follow my content. You're like, Katerina, it's ABC of communication. Then let's review it together, right? But I found, darlings, like to me, if somebody sat me down even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and presented me a blueprint, this is how you move through emotionally charged conversation with more grace. So the very first thing, when I'm with somebody who is emotionally activated, and how do you know? Well, you feel it. Right? You feel the rigidity, you feel the trauma activated in another person, you feel the defense. So the very first thing that I do is I bring benevolent energy. And I go straight to the core. I see this person in front of me gets to hear me reassuring them that I'm not going to leave, I'm not going to abandon, and I'm not going to think less of them, right? So very, very powerful when you have emotionally charged conversation, whether it's with your partner, with your child, with your parents, right? It's when somebody's in activated state, it's such a gift to bring harmonious energy and trusting this yourself that you're able to do that. One of the reasons I work with the Gene Keys, and I'm such a champion of that wisdom, because when you start working with the Gene Keys, it's not just like intellectual exercise. It's one of the most bravest curriculum on how to open your heart and how to remove defenses around your heart, and how to learn to communicate with gentleness, with courtesy, how to take responsibility for your stuff, right? Because it's easy to point the finger and to say, they don't take responsibility. Trust me, I have it with my mother. My ego will tell me, it would be nice if your mother at least once took responsibility for her choices, for her actions. But you see, that's the ego's voice, because the heart doesn't care. The heart wants to experience flow of energy between you and another person. The ego will try to assert its righteousness. So once you listen to the ego, you're like, I hear you, ego. You, at one level, you're totally correct. It would be nice if they take responsibility. But at this moment, the person who has more awareness can rise to the next level of expansion of their consciousness by choosing the way of the heart, right? So at any dynamic, there is always this tuning fork effect. A person who has more expanded heart vibration becomes the tuning fork, becomes a strong enough energy to equalize and harmonize entire field. Hi loves, welcome. Good to be with you. I rarely go live at this late hour, but you know what? We're timeless. We are timeless. Who even needs to talk about time, right? Time is a funny thing given to us humans. Well, let's just say this. Time is a funny thing given to us divine beings who are pretending to be mortal humans. Time is very useful on this earthly plane, right? It gives us the gift of impermanence. It gives us an opportunity to appreciate things that will not last. Because if they would last forever, we would not appreciate them. So, for example, the art of connection, the art of graciousness, the art of having difficult conversations with ease. And darlings, trust me, life gives me those difficult conversations, because how can you become an effective leader, an effective guide, an effective human being if you don't know how to navigate emotionally charged conversation with graciousness, right? So of course, it's going to be a part of our human curriculum. And some of the most common strategies that people avoid the vulnerability of that experience is they either react in anger and go into blame. They should take responsibility. They are not evolved enough, right? It's their fault. Or avoiding and freezing and overwhelm. I can't deal with this right now. I'm gonna put this conversation on the shoulders of future me. Trust me, I've done it so many times. I'm like, I just freeze. You know, when my mind gets overwhelmed, I just shut down. I'm like, you know, like this electricity tower that got too much voltage. I'm like, burned up. So it just depends on your nervous system, right? And but what I found, loves, every time I lean in after I do an inner alchemy. So I never enter emotionally charged conversation before I run a scan, like a full emotional scan of my inner world. And I ask myself before I enter in a conversation with another, do I have everything I require to really meet that moment? And it could be breath work. It could be a centering practice to remember my power, to remember my heart. It could be opening my heart, right? But there is some kind of a preparation process of inner alchemy that I put myself through in order to activate that graciousness, right? I may tap into it right away. I may not. But I know how to activate that gracious energy. It's basically opening up the heart. And then when I enter a conversation, I want to reassure another human being that my intention is benevolent, that I'm not there to fight, I'm not there to argue, and I'm not there to change their mind. That's a very powerful piece that I wish I got years ago. Because what you're doing, you're soothing the resistance of their subconscious mind, and you're inviting them to meet you on the bridge of communication, right? And then you want to validate their experience. This is huge. This is huge. If men listening to this could save your relationship. If women listening to this could save your sanity in relationships, right? Because if you communicate, for example, darlings, I only go out with highly evolved men who have trauma-informed toolbox. Hello, Stacy, my love. who have emotional maturity. You know what I mean? I'm not even in conversation with men who don't have the tools to meet me in emotionally turbulent situation. But let's just say 7 years ago, if I could only sit down and I say, look, when I am in distress state and my nervous system is deactivated, this is what you can say to me to help me return into state of harmony. Imagine how liberating. This is the level of communication that is rooted in graciousness, where you know yourself so deeply. You know exactly what words, what tone, what eye contact can help you bring into balance. When you're with somebody who is evolved, mature, and committed to inner growth, they will be so appreciative that you gave them specific code, right? That will help you return to harmony and to that gracious communication. Powerful, powerful. So I'm breaking down the process of, for everyone who just joined loves, I'm breaking down the process of how to enter emotionally charged, difficult conversations with ease and graciousness. And the very first is to reassure another person's consciousness that your intention is benevolent, and trust your ability to communicate it, because it's one thing to communicate that to somebody whose consciousness is able to receive your share. And another level is, for example, with our relatives. A lot of times, a lot of light workers incarnate in very challenging family lineages. They don't even have the language, right? So for example, like with my mom, I'm learning to speak very, very simply, very strict, and just like boom, the most direct message. Mom, I want you to know I will never abandon you. Mom, I want you to know I'm here. Mom, I want you to know I care about how you feel. 3 phrases that can change the quality of interaction right from the get-go, right? And that you establish the base. Instead of, a lot of times in the past, I would come to the conversation so annoyed already that I even have to have a conversation that is so like, gosh, here we are again in this melodrama, right? So you see, energy doesn't lie. Even if you don't say it, but that's what's running on your consciousness, they will pick it up, and their subconscious mind will be defended against you immediately. Nada! Hello, Sister Valerie. Hello, darling ladies. So, I'm just learning all of this, my love. Soon I will codify this and create a curriculum on this. But for now, I'm just tracking and breaking it down how I learn it, right? But that's the first. Reassure that your intention is benevolent. Straight communicate straight the message to their inner child, whatever the wound is activated, and then validate their experience, right? I think it's so important. It doesn't matter who you're talking to, male being, female being. It doesn't matter what is the person body look like. Some of the tough looking people that I've met need long for the most validation. You know what I mean? They long for the most validation. So you want to say, I'm here to learn about your world and what are you moving through and what's the nature of your experience, right? And after you validate the experience, the secret trick up my sleeve, the shortest distance between 2 people is what? The shortest distance between 2 people, my loves, write this down and memorize this, is a laugh. Humor is so disarming, right? So a lot of times I will gently navigate the conversation and I'll say, well, tell me about what lights you up right now. What brings you the most joy right now? There must be at least something that you lose yourself in doing. What is it? I want to know about it. People love talking about their hobbies, their obsessions, and they rarely have enough space to talk about it. So you join them in listening about their garden, or they needing something, or, something that brings them joy. And that's another opening. That's another opening in the aura, right? And it's really, really beautiful that we can activate that quality of graciousness, which is the Gene Key 22 loves. Gene Key 22. And we can transform the shadow of, I believe it's a shadow of discord or something like that. I gotta look it up. I forgot the shadow. Hold on. I have it, the cheat sheet right here. Hold on. Dishonor, the shadow of dishonor. And we could elevate our relationships. You know, one of the reasons I'm obsessed with the Gene Keys, and I keep talking about it pretty much every day and twice on Sunday, is because it's a language of consciousness that helps us transform these stubborn psychological blocks and fears that prevent the evolution of humanity. You know what I mean? It's through our relationships that we can ascend to the next level of our consciousness, right? And it's no wonder Ram Dass, one of my beloved teachers who is not in our body anymore, he one of his latest books called Polishing the Mirror. And he says, if you really want to know how evolved are you, go spend the weekend with your family. My friend James joined. Hello. Starseed Healing Journeys joined. Hello, darlings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. But you know, all roads lead to home, right? And it's this is the alchemy, the relation of alchemy. And it's the same thing with business partnerships. I love bringing the same approach to business partnership, the same approach to my team, right? To the freelancers that I hire. Like, I have a talent for finding incredible people to support my mission. They're devoted, they're dedicated, they're heart-centered, they're incredibly gifted, talented, brilliant, honest, integrity-based workers, right? But it's one thing to find them, it's another thing to keep them. Right? To keep them engaged in the mission that you serve. And the one thing that I do, loves, I validate so much of their work, of their qualities, you know, and it's like I use a lot of genuine validation, like, thank you, I see your genius, right? Wow, how you showed up here. It really helped me move that project so much further along. That's graciousness, right? That's gracious. Not being afraid that, you know, your validation will spoil somebody's performance. Trust me, I've met so many people who are afraid to give people genuine validation because they think it's gonna like drop performance. That's scarcity and fear thinking. I found when you water something, it flowers, you know, and the more you validate another human being, whether validate the pain that they're going through, and say, you know what, wow, this is tough. I feel this with you, right? Or you validate their genius. Like, I really see the gifts that you carry. Wow, and take a moment to like genuinely feel that. People begin to open up. People begin to flower. People begin to let you in, right? And let you into seeing who they are and into their deeper world. So the art of gracious communication. A lot of time people say, Katerina, help me. I am going through this conflict and I don't know how to navigate it. And I say, are you willing to empty everything you know? Because right now your mind is way too full. You know, it takes that humility, my loves. And I'm telling you this because like when I had a conversation with my mother that was so healing, I almost didn't call. I almost put it on the back burner. I almost used one of my justification. I don't have the bandwidth right now to deal with this melodrama, right? It's the old story, as old as 20 years old, right? I could go into justification. But remember, justification is the mind talking. It's the ego talking. The heart doesn't care. The heart wants intimacy of the moment. The heart wants truth. The heart wants, I'm going to find the key to establish connection, right? And the heart is brave. The heart is not afraid being exposed. It's the ego that is afraid to be exposed. So knowing the difference, is my heart talking in this situation or is my ego running the show? The ego always wants to fight, wants to assert itself, wants to separate, wants to blame, wants to judge or shame. Again, ego is not a bad guy in this movie story. Yes, loves, I got you. Let's talk about ego. One of my favorite topics. It's not a bad thing that we have to cut, kill, or destroy. We simply get to educate our ego. You just imagine like a kid without a training just runs the show. Or better metaphor, a wild horse without any training running the show, right? So how do we turn this wild stallion of our ego into a beautiful companion that's here to support an individual expression of our identity, right? Personality is amazing. We don't have the personality in the spirit world. It's only a temporary experience. So the tips for the ego, a beautiful question that Sabrina asked, is there a tips for the ego? So it's literally learning to distinguish the voice, because there is always the monkey mind voice, the inner commentary that chats and evaluates and judges. Just learn to first recognize that voice, and then learn to recognize the voice of your intuition or the voice of your heart. Very different vibration, very different frequency. One is constantly chatting, comparing, judging, or worrying. The voice of the heart is like this: presence, delight, hope, excitement about what can happen today. Maybe today is the day where my dream will come true, right? The heart wants to engage with beauty, with nature, with authentic exploration of life. So the first thing is notice that. And then there is a great book that's called Ego that I recommend. It has this bright yellow cover where you begin this brave journey of getting to know the wounds of the personality. Every personality has wounds. So the wounds that have been imprinted in cycles of our growth, the first 7 years, next 7 years, we have been imprinted by these scars, right? Scars from childhood, scars from our school's environment. So one of the processes of getting to know your personality's wounds is that journey. And then ultimately it's re-educating your ego in service to the heart. The easiest way to know, ego always wants to be right, heart always wants to be free. Your heart doesn't care about being right. The heart wants to be at peace. So that is the exploration for me, darlings. And for me right now, my ego has been re-educated and went through a process of healing, acceptance, understanding that it's in devotional service to the soul. They're working together, my soul, my ego, my heart, my mind, my body, working together. And that's where everything becomes, your life begins to move in harmony, in a beautiful flow, in connection, in the rhythm. It's your authentic rhythm. So from my perspective, the journey of awakening is the journey back to your most integrated self, where we don't ignore the body or transcend the body because the body is not that important on a spiritual path, or we don't ignore our physical life and all of the things that physical life asks us to take care of because it's not spiritual. We bring everything back to wholeness, to the integration. So yes, the heart wants to be seen, re-educating ego in service to the heart, acknowledging your personality. And then the most powerful way to know about what progress are you making in this re-education curriculum, Sabrina, is having these courageous, authentic conversations and not holding an impossible standard of perfection from yourself. Like, I gotta nail this right away. You know, some of the most courageous conversations that I've had, after I have them, I replay them in my mind and I'm like, oh, I wish they said it differently, right? But then what I'm learning is I'm learning to give myself so much acknowledgement for every brave, authentic conversation I have, because it trains me, it teaches me how to expand in that ability to speak the truth of my soul with graciousness of my heart and the presence of my mind. When we learn to communicate like that in a new way, as a new human in the new earth, we heal so much, beloveds. We heal so much, you know. We all walk, leave, and lead through our most authentic, integrated self, right? So let me know if you have any questions. Because people say, I have communication problems. And a lot of times people say, I have communication problems, like this is a new thing under the sun. Entire population of planet Earth having communication problems with each other, with the planet Earth, right? So it's learning to communicate through the heart. Yes, Sabrina says, do you have tips for connecting with your heart? Yes, beloved. I just did a whole presentation on the heart wisdom. Yes, and the simplest way that I recommend for you, just imagine that your heart has a brain on the biological, from biological perspective, your heart has its own brain, communication field, right? So imagine that. Imagine how you can see with your third eye. You have a heart eye. And just how when you begin to perceive on the inner plane and you say, you know what, I'm curious to like see colors on the inner plane or see visions or visualize, right? You're activating ability to see through your third eye. Imagine that your heart has an eye that right now is closed to a degree, and you can invite it to open. So what I would do, I would sit with your heart every single day, and don't make it like a heavy rule to follow. Just a playful intention, you know, like a desire to spend time with the most important part of who you are, is your heart. And I would literally just sit like this, and I would hold my heart, and I would feel it first on the very kinesthetic level. Level 1, just allowing your body to feel the connection. Level 2, you ask your heart to grow. Where you say, beloved heart, it's our time right now. So imagine your heart is like a being that you talk to. And you say, beloved heart, I'm finally here. I'm ready to grow together with you. Teach me how to grow together with you. And I invite you to open. So you make a very conscious invitation for your heart to begin to open. And then if you'd like to visualize, if you're very visual, I'm very visual, so for me it's easier to visualize something. I close my eyes, I go on the inner plane, and I just begin to visualize my heart as this flower. So maybe it's an orchid, maybe it's a white rose, maybe it's a red rose. And you begin to visualize with every breath you take, you begin to visualize your heart opening. And then if you're kinesthetic, you imagine that you can smell the scent of a blooming lily or a rose. You want to make this experience as real for your body as possible. Then you create a real activation on the level of the cell, on the level of your DNA, and you give a signal. You behind your intention, you have this signal that goes to all planes of your being. So I hope this helped, but this is exactly what I did when I was working with opening my heart eye. Very physical, visionary, felt, sensory experience. And it's profound, because then I was guided to all these esoteric teachings that literally there has been a transmission, right? Like a revelation through these mystical teachings that on a level of spiritual anatomy, we have the heart eye. We also have the womb eye, right? Just how like our hands have chakras. Did you know about that? Our feet have chakras. But to me, it was to get a confirmation that what I was already guided as an inner discovery, that my heart has an eye, not just the brain, but has an eye that can open. And when that heart eye fully opens, you tap into ability to see in a very omniscient way, like source consciousness sees, where you see multidimensionally all perspectives at once, right? You see through that eye of Horus, but now it's from here. Then of course you become the field of love. Of course you become that, that vibratory pulse of life itself. And then the most beautiful thing happens. You begin to realize you are being seen through. You realize that great intelligence sees through you. And life becomes really exciting. You say, everything before was just the warm-up. We just began to live. Oh, I see Dave DTO has joined. Hello, my spirit brother, all the way from Costa Rica. And then I see Odie, Butterfly Nikki, Marta, Bridget. I am doing my best, my loves, pronouncing your names correctly. And if I say somebody's name incorrectly, please have some graciousness here. Me! Is it Jessica? I want more. I believe your name is Jessica, right, darling? I believe so. Yes, I remember. So have just such a gift, such a blessing, beloveds. I just, the reason for this share, I wanted you to know that I did not come out of my mother's womb compassionate, gracious, effective communicator. It was decades of missed opportunities to speak my truth, simply out of terror and fear of overwhelm of my nervous system, and just really being afraid that intense emotional conversations will overwhelm me. So I would avoid them. So I was a master avoidant for many years, until I realized I'm missing rich opportunities for growth by avoiding intense conversations. And then I began to fall in love with intensity of truth, intensity of intimacy, intensity of liberation. But you know what? You can navigate very intense conversations with beautiful softness. You don't need to give up your strength to gain softness. This is the art, right? The art of leaning into your softness when the moment requires, standing in your strength when the moment requires, and having both, having a beautiful range. And all of it is sprinkled by the frequency of graciousness, where you are gentle, you are kind, you validate another person's experience, right? You reassure that you're not abandoning the person, you're reassuring that you're not rejecting them. And how can we become good at this? By being willing to stand into experience and practice. We're not going to get it perfectly each time. I can guarantee you that. But I'm willing to give it another go each time and become more and more fluid in this art of graciousness. And that takes that heart frequency. On this note, beloveds, let's wrap this up. Today, I'm going to go to yin yoga class. It's been such a long time since my last group yoga class. It's embarrassing. If I tell you how long it's been, it's a little embarrassing for my ego. Let's just say that. My heart doesn't care. My heart says, yeah, as long as you show up on the yoga mat, that's all that matters. My ego says, I can't believe it's been like 2 months, right? So I'm gonna go to yin yoga class, stretch, connect with the body, and continue to prepare. I am leading a workshop next weekend, beloveds, on the gene keys, and unfortunately 5 people from Germany who were gonna be there cannot come because the borders are closed from Europe to Germany. And we get to surrender to that. You know, it's a little sad because I was really looking forward to seeing those magical souls who are willing to travel all the way from Germany for 2-day Jinkies intensive. And then the borders are not open. So what do we say to that? We say life knows best, and we redirect and we trust that next year is going to be even better. So I'm delivering this workshop, this intensive, for my US-based community. And I'm excited, darlings. You know, if we can't enter US, we can go to other places. Like I am hosting a Spirit Quest adventure retreat in Peru in March. Soon, very soon, probably in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, I will begin sharing more about that vision. You know, so for me, just like, how can we go to places that are available, that we can fly into, right? So I know Costa Rica is open, Peru, Mexico is open. You know, there is other places that we can go to. The Europe and US are in a very interesting terms right now. There is a lot of rules and blocks and limitations. Okay, let's find a country that we can both fly into, right? So we always work with what's possible. If you just joined, darlings, I'm just like jamming on the last moments of this live stream, but I feel it was important to address that whether you're learning the art of graciousness and leadership, in parenthood, in romance, it's only a matter of time where life will test the embodiment of our consciousness through giving us an opportunity to step into a difficult conversation, right? That's what life gives us. Life gives us an opportunity to test our embodiment. Michelle has joined me. Mwah, I see you, darling. Yeah, so the art of graciousness is the art of refinement, our ability to communicate. And again, I just want to say it for everybody who has joined. You don't need to give up your strength to acquire your softness. You can have both, and you get to have both. On the path of leadership, on the path of influence, it's developing both. Continue to develop new degrees and levels of strength, and you continue to develop new degrees and levels and layers of softness. And it's both of these qualities, right, that bring that beautiful, incredible frequency that is called you in your authentic, integrated expression. On that note, I'm gonna go change into yoga pants and go take a yin yoga class. That's what's on the plan tonight. I love you. I'll see you soon.